And here, and I'm just going to show you a layout using some fussy cutting. Now I often start just sorting through my bits and pieces of leftovers from previous layouts and just seeing what I can use from those first. I often cut out more things than I plan to use, and then they sort of sit there and I don't throw them away. I keep them and I go back to them and just see if I can use them on another project, because often it's the you know, your prints, your bolder prints within a paper design that I have actually cut out. You can also see when I'm choosing the things to cut out, I don't necessarily choose the entire image. Quite often I'll just look at a portion of an image and cut around that portion. Like with this piece, I didn't cut out the fairy, I merely cut out the flower and a little bit of the lace imprint as well. And that's just personal to style and that sort of thing. Now obviously I found this gorgeous piece of fairy bell paper and it makes a beautiful background, but I just thought I'd love to have a more of a circular design to my page, so I am cutting around this. Now I find when you've got really detailed fussy cutting, I much prefer to use the Comfort craft tools and the knife in those ones for that. It just gives you a lot more precision for really delicate stuff. And you can see once this gets cut out just how fine some of those cuts are around the page. They are super fine little cuts, and the knife just made it really easy to do that. And now I'm just using my scissors to cut a swirl, and then I'm going to create more of a neutral background with some Claudine Helmuth white gesso. This is a beautiful thick gesso, so it really gives a good coverage. I'm only using a single coat on this. If you wanted even more of a coverage, you could let it dry and then add an additional coat, but I found just a single coat of it was fine for what I wanted. And even before I dried, I then grabbed some Ranger stickles and added a coat, because every girl needs a little bit of glitter, and it really does add a gorgeous sparkly finish to this swirl. And I just used my paintbrush to make sure it went right to the edges, because I gave it a fairly good thick coating, but you can use the nib of the packet or the bottle, but I found it was just easier just to add a little bit around the edges. And then just corner punching for my very background. You always do your corners first before filling in between those corners with your around the page punches. Now it's just a matter of lining up and continuing on when you're doing the punching, using your guides on your punch. I don't usually have too many problems making sure they're lined up. If you're careful with it and stuff, it's pretty easy. And now just checking the back with my layers, and you'll find that I check design and I'll cut more from patterns or papers, and sometimes I'll cut an element, but then I decide I actually want to use an even smaller portion of that element as well. So here I actually ended up deciding to just use a little bit of purple and cut that away from the rest of the design, and that gave me sort of two elements, and it gave me more flexibility to add that deeper purple colour in. I do a lot of fussing around and just seeing if I like things in this spot or that spot. And again, you can see I've chosen to cut around this floral element on this paper, and again I didn't use the fairy because I just wanted the flowers. And then just again wanting to use these darker mauvey coloured flowers, because they really do add a little bit more contrast on an otherwise fairly pastel layout. And you'll see often with flowers and where the design's fairly bold, I'll often just use my scissors. You could use the craft knife as well. For me, I just find with the big bold designs, I'm quicker with the scissors than I am with the craft knife, but as soon as I get to really detailed work, I much prefer using the craft knife. Then just to start sticking down of your different elements. Now I actually decided to change in my actual design of the layout. But one thing that's always consistent is I always ink my edges and stuff on all my layers, and often distress them up quite a bit as well. And the inking of them just adds that little bit more dimension to the page, and just helps give it a bit more lift. And I'm just using walnut stain in the Distress inks. It's probably my favourite colour. Even on these light colour papers, I don't mind that deeper edge. And I use Distress ink on all those different levels, from the cut decorative cut edge to just every single piece. And again, just inking up my internal part, and then I always use the Distress tool after I've inked. And the reason I do that is because I really like to get both the brown and then the white core coming through once I've used the Comfort Craft Distress tool. And you can really use that Distress tool for like deep distressing or quite light distressing, depending on what element of that tool you plan to use. And when you lay it on the mat and push against it like that, you can actually bring up a lot more white core and roll the paper back, and just take the top off just by the amount of pressure you apply and the directionality of that pressure when you're working with the tool. And so I've just gone around. I'm also adding some Distress ink to a couple of essential flowers as well. Now previously I was having a look at this going underneath the photo, but because I'm using a vertical photo, I decided to end up going more with horizontal strips and the floral element going horizontal. And even down to the flag style cut strip, I inked and distressed that as well. It just keeps continuity with the layout. A few foam mount dots on the note card just means it'll raise it up, add a little bit of dimension, and obviously that just helps give a little bit of interest with it. And your chipboard elements are great. Now if you use foam mat with a chipboard, you just need a couple just to hold it in place. It's going to remain quite firm, not going to sag and bend, which is really good. Now I haven't used a lot of flowers on this layout, just a few, just to really give it that little softness and a few little points of interest. Whereas I didn't really want to overcrowd all the other layers of fussy cut paper. I still wanted that to be quite evident within the layout, so I've kept my flowers to just a handful on this. And obviously again, working with size is really important, starting with your bigger flowers first and then bringing the size of the flowers down, adding leaves, seeing just even the directionality of where you place leaves can be really important in keeping a really good design page, because that shows you where you flow and where your eyes will follow where those leaves and the directionality of those leaves go. Just sticking all those things in place and just getting it so it's the way you want it. And I do fuss around with that a fair bit. And just making sure I'm happy with it all. And then once I'm happy with all that, I then stick down my photo. And then I'm going to add on my swirled elements as well. Now I'm using very fine foam mount tape under this because I wanted to lift this off the page as well. I want it coming out from an area that's already a little bit higher and a bit more bulky, and by lifting it off it means it doesn't get lost into the design, and you'll actually get that extra dimension and make it a bit more of a feature because it's so glittery and sparkly after using the stickles on the top of it, that it's really nice to give it that added height to make it even more noticeable. And my other swirl I actually cut up just to get a little bit from the top end, and that helps just to give a bit of flow to that whole element on the page, because your eye will run across that quite easily now, and it gives it a beautiful flow in the design. Finally, I've added in one of those little birds, little resin bird, and I'm just going to colour that ever so slightly with cream pan pastel colours by Colourfin, and I'm just using the applicator and adding just a hint of that cream onto the bird, mostly because I want it just to give it a bit more change of colour compared to the white swirls, and they'll help make it a little bit more noticeable, and just ensure that you apply a sealer over the top of that so that the pan pastels don't come away from it. And then you're left with the whole layout with lots of layers and lots of hand cut elements.